It's simple, really. Great stories with a good cup of tea. It's the Tea with Mike show. Tea with Mike fans on this episode of the show. Sean Dustin stops by. Um, Enjoy a cup of tea and come learn all about Sean's hardships and struggles and how he's managed to turn it around. Enjoy. Alright, guys, welcome to another episode of the Tea with Mike show. Really excited today that Sean is joining me. Welcome to Tea with Mike show.
Hey Mike, how's it going, man? Thank you
Good,
for
thanks.
having me on your show.
No problem at all. So, on my show, I just like to dive straight in because it's totally about the guest and not me. So, do you want to start by telling everyone a little bit about you?
All right. Well, my name is Sean Dustin. I'm from Northern California, the Bay Area, San Francisco. About 45 minutes from San Francisco, on the eastern part of the Bay. I was born and raised out here. I went to Sacramento for a few years as I turned into an adult. I was there for 6 years. I was also went to Vegas for 6 years, and then came back to the Bay Area once I was released from prison.
Awesome. So obviously it sounds like you had quite a difficult start to life. Are there any particular reasons why that may have happened?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that I had a difficult start to life. It was more. I went through some stuff. My parents divorced when I was young, and there was some violent. Not I never witnessed any physical violence, but there was a lot of verbal stuff going on, and the like. A lot of the things that I got into and got involved in were just basically from a lack of supervision. My mom was a single mother. My brother and sister, they're 12 and 10 years older than me. They were able to. They were out of the house by the time I was going through, grade school and junior high and high school, and basically uh, adolescence, I would say. And so I there was not a lot of supervision. I was a latchkey kid. I got in a lot of trouble. I acted out quite a bit, and most of the problems that I experienced were of my own doing. And, I would just get into things, and that just that lack of supervision and respect for authority and all those other things that go along with not having a male role model or anybody in my life to just basically hey, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's not. Maybe you should rethink that. Just all those things. And having a child now, myself, it's like I can see that there's, you have to have somebody there guiding you through life, and I didn't have that, and so, and the little bit that I did have was not enough to be consistent,
Okay.
a consistent source, right? And so, I mean, it was just okay, you tell me this, but then, I go back home and I have no supervision, and, it's just, all right, well, back to business as usual. Um, and so, yeah, that continued into adulthood, and, with substances and everything else that played a part in, where I ended up at the end of the day. It's just it is what it is. It kind of happened, and luckily I was able to pull myself out of that, and it only took 16, 17, 18 years, but I mean, 18 institutions later. But hey, I can look back on it now, and I can smile and go, okay, well, it was my path. It wasn't my purpose. It was, it was a journey to a destination, that you kind of with anything in life, man, any journey that you're going on, all the destinations that you endure and encounter, that's just all a part of the recipe, right? The recipe of
Right.
you. And yeah, I mean that's just kind of what it is. I mean, if you have any more like specific questions, I'll be happy to ask those.
So I I I I want to go down the route of kind of so obviously very rocky like beginnings, but but somewhere within this journey there must have been that one like or a couple of pivot points where you managed to almost like reverse psychology, maybe change the way you thought about life and perspective. Were there any of those sorts of moments?
There, I get this question a lot. What was the aha moment? Where was the
The
where
light
things
bulb.
just, yeah, the light bulb goes bing. Oh, you're a piece of you're not such a good person. Maybe you should change. I don't. I mean, I've talked about a couple of them in my, or one in specific in a couple of different um, interviews, but I don't. I honestly don't think it was just one thing. I think it was, how sometimes you hear that there's a perfect storm of events that happens that is the catalyst for different things in life. Let's just say, like in the situation where we're at now, you got COVID, you got unemployment, you got all this thing.
Yeah.
It's the perfect storm of events that leads up to the catalyst that says, oh man, I got to change. Because all the little things that would normally people would, identify or recognize, I just didn't because they didn't have that kind of upbringing. So it was anytime that I'd made a change in my life up until this point, it would have to be something that was super drastic and, you know, and it had to be a few at the same time because obviously going to jail wasn't drastic enough for me to go, oh well, maybe you shouldn't do that. So it was just a culmination of a lot of different things, a lot of I think the ability to self-reflect even more uh, as I was, because it's crazy because it all goes back to maturity, right? So when you mature, you obviously, and men definitely mature later than women. Some of us, it takes us till we get into our 40s until we actually become mature, and mature in the way of like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't. You stop thinking more about yourself and start thinking more about other people and how you and your place in the world and how you impact the things around you. And are you impacting people negatively or are you impacting people positively? um, that stuff is like I didn't get that until I was in my 40s, right? And so that doesn't answer your question, which is
Oh,
what was.
it kind of does because obviously whilst you're in jail, quite a bit of additional time on your hands and opportunity for as a lot of self reflection and really deep diving into some of the decision making that you've like kind of made in the past, and then realizing that you ultimately want to basically like anyone leave the planet having left a positive impact on people. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, but it was like a whole bunch of those moments where I'm constantly having to think about it, and then all of the things from the places and like the rehabs that I'd been to. I mean, those were all necessary, right? Because they were seeds that were being planted and information that I mean, even though if I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, I was at least absorbing through osmosis of being there and having these things in my mind subconsciously, right? And at one point, it just like it seemed like almost everything that everybody had ever told me, all the things that bits of seeds that I had planted in the past, just all made sense at one point, at one time, right? And it's like And then once you have that realization, then it's like the hard work of having to dig yourself out
Actually
of the
doing
hole,
it. Yeah.
because it's a lot easier just to be a piece of crap, and just go through life, flailing about and not really having any direction, and just, not being accountable for any of your actions or reactions, or goals, not setting goals, failed goals, and just the normal things that, like when you're growing up, right? How do you get how does a child gain self-esteem and realize that they can do something more than what they're doing, right? It's
Through
about
positive parenting and that sort of thing, and encouragement and all those kinds of
goals, like
and
small goals that you set for yourself and you achieve them, and then you have people that are, I never had that. The goals that I was achieving were usually criminal in nature, right? And what kind of accolades are those? I mean, you're getting kudos from your friends from ripping somebody off, or making a good score, or whatever it is, right? And so uh, those accolades and stuff that I needed growing up, I had to implement those as an adult. So it was literally once I okay, I'm going to stop doing this. Then there was the process of, all right, well, how do I build me? And who am I? I mean, I was in credit card fraud and all of these other things. When I was growing up, I didn't like who I was a whole lot to begin with, because I grew up in an all-white neighborhood. I'm a darker complected, so I was always different. The only I think, if I had to guess, one of the reasons why I never really experienced a whole lot of racism, or um, whatever that word is, racism, or it's not quite racism, but it's you're being, I don't know what the word is for it, but
push to one side.
prejudged.
Oh, prejudgment.
Yeah, prejudgment. But usually that was always like the people. I could see that they would have prejudging, how I look. But as soon as I opened my mouth and spoke, the barrier is gone, because I sound like I'm white, right? And so, or somewhat intelligent. And so it opened a lot of doors, but I also was I got a lot of doors open. But I mean, the one thing is that you can use your looks, you can use your intelligence to get doors open for you, but ultimately, to keep them open, you have to perform, or you know what I mean? It's one thing to just be a good-looking person and have the doors open for you, but if you have no substance or anything that's going to keep you there, then you're going to go through your life just experiencing a lot of open and closed doors.
Gotcha. And then if doors keep opening and they keep closing, ultimately you're not really serving much of a purpose, because you can't grasp one of these doors and hold on to it, right?
Yeah, and you're basically you're wasting opportunities, because these could have been opportunities that you're flailing about aimlessly. But if you're paying attention, then one of these opportunities could have been the one.
Exactly. Okay, awesome. And then, so obviously through all of this hardship and kind of struggles, you mentioned it a little bit already, but maybe you could expand on it or not, depending. Was there anybody that was kind of ever there for you in the early part of your life? And perhaps was that person always in the back of your mind, maybe in that thinking, when you talked about all of these different points coming together, that moment of realization?
Well, my mom was always there. She never left my side. I mean, she's been my rock, basically. Whenever something went down, that's who I would call, and she always showed up. And I just no. I mean, my dad. I mean, he was there, but once I started really getting in trouble, it was like, he just sort of like distanced himself away from me. I mean, we're cool now, but it was just not. you know, and I don't really blame him for it either. I mean, there was just nothing that you could do. You couldn't tell me anything. I'm one of these people that has to experience things. Like I have to run into the same wall 2 or 3 times to realize, oh,
This is
you
not
should
right.
probably, you should probably go right or left before you hit the wall. You know, and so you know, it's tough because there are some people that are like me where you just can't get through to them until they go through it on their own. And the unfortunate part about that is you know, luckily the drugs that I was doing weren't ones that canceled Christmas. You know, they weren't strong enough or dangerous enough to kill me. You know, having gone back to them repeatedly.
Right.
Before I realized that, oh, you know, it's like you should probably not do this anymore. You know. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
no, it does for sure.
okay.
And then so let's put a little bit of a different perspective on it. So obviously, like we've kept mentioning, obviously your past is your past, and everybody learns from their past. And so let's talk a little bit about your podcast and Nowhere to Go But Up. So how did this start, and why did you start it first off?
Well, I started it because I knew that I had like tons of stories, like of addiction stories, of stories where like I mean I almost died 5 times, literally. 3 from overdoses, 2 from substance-related accidents, vehicle accidents, or other stuff. And you know, I was like, God, there was just so many things. Like I remember I was watching Shameless, and
Oh yeah.
I go, you know, I got a couple of stories that could challenge this series, you know, and so I was like, well, why don't you do something like you have all of this creativity inside you, you have all these things that you want to do. Why don't you make a podcast? I've been listening to Joe Rogan for 2 years, and you know, Joe Rogan's telling everybody to start a podcast, and so I did, and I watched YouTube and just figured it out. You know, got involved in all those groups that you know we all are a part of, and you know the supportiveness and everything else with the groups, and you know that was how I did it. But the reason why was I just how impactful these podcasts were to me as a listener. Um, like I would just think like, damn, if I would have had this back when I was going through what I was going through, you know, as a kid, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, had started listening to podcasts then. I was like, God, man, I'd be dangerous. Because there's just so many things you can learn, right? You're a fly on the wall of conversations, and you know, not every conversation you're going to get amazing things from, but you're going to pick up little bits and pieces from every conversation you listen to, you know. And it was just like, well, if this is how it's impacting me, then I want to bring this to other people, you know, because I think it's amazing. The fact that I can connect with so many different people in so many different places, you know, Canada, Zimbabwe, you know, I've talked to people from all over the place, and
which is cool.
Yeah, and it's like it really puts into perspective that we are really not that far apart as we like to think, you know, or as it's being portrayed that we're so different from everybody else in the world. But the basic bottom line is that people just want to be heard, man. They want a fair shot.
Yes.
You know, they want the same opportunities that everybody's afforded, you know, and to you know, just make sure that their children have a better life than they did. That's really what it comes down to.
Right.
You know, you don't understand that until you have kids. But I think that having children for me was what really put things in perspective, because it got me out of myself, and now I'm having to think for somebody else.
Oh, versus just yourself. Gotcha.
Yeah, like I can go to jail. I can deal with that. But now if I go to jail, then who's going to take care of my daughter? who's gonna, because I was in a situation like that where I haven't had a daughter. I have one who's 20 years old, and when she was 18 months, I had my rights terminated because I was just out there being an idiot. And I had the opportunity to contest it, and I chose not to. I chose to go party and do drugs. And so, I had made that mistake once in my life, and now I'm super vigilant about being a parent and being that role model and there to guide my daughter and teach her, not to give her the life that I wish I had, but to teach her the things that I wish I'd known.
Oh, okay, awesome. And that's one of my favorite pieces about podcasting and the way that you can use technology and the digital to network and hear other people's experiences and stories from around the world, and to also, more importantly, learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason why our grandparents, the radio was super impactful, man. And it had people, families would gather around the radio to listen to the whatever program, that came before TV, and TV is not the same. I mean, you can watch something, but I don't think it's the same as listening only, because there's distractions in watching things, right?
Right, because of the production and how it looks versus solely focused on the voice.
Yep. And so I think that's the difference. There's a place for all of it, but I think if you really want to be impacted by what you're listening to, listen to it audio only.
Awesome. And then, so let's just pause for a moment. And so the tea fact for the episode is you can bathe in tea and it actually works. And that's so skincare.com reports that bathing in green tea can help detoxify and soothe your skin. So it encourages you to give it a try. And that actually comes from royalcupofcoffee.com. Yeah, I've said this a few times, but another part of why I enjoy doing this is kind of learning all these cool tea facts. And like you were mentioning about learning from others and stories and the impact that it has, there's also that knowledge element of learning about the subject. So in this context, tea.
Okay, yeah, I'm not a big tea person except for sun tea. I sometimes I'll get in the mood to want tea, but the problem is that I like it sweetened, so I've kind of shied away from it because I don't want to add any more sweeteners than I already do to my diet, right?
Right.
That's something I struggle with too. I'm about getting ready to do another weight loss deal. Not that I'm like super overweight, but I'm a little bit heavier than I'd like to be. About 35 pounds overweight, maybe, or heavier than where my sweet spot is for me.
Gotcha.
So, just one of the struggles of being a human.
And then also, so let's pick back up on the podcast. So in a nutshell, have you had any standout moments from some of the guests that you've had on the show?
I haven't had like any like super I guess you would call celebrities, like people.
But I don't. Yeah, but I think like I'm learning sometimes some of the most impactful stories are not the people with the biggest social media followings, that the persons that are often don't have much of a social media presence, because it's all about the power of the story versus necessarily the following.
Yeah, I think I have a spot in my heart for all the episodes that I've done. Honestly, I don't. There's usually it's a bottom or a life struggle story that I'm talking to my guests about, and they're sharing their stories and their struggles and how they got through to what they were doing. So I mean, I don't know. I don't that question. I don't have an answer for that question. I like all of them, man.
Yeah, me too. But So if you were asking me that question, I would probably give like a similar answer to you, because they all resonated and hit me in different ways. But every single time, I always learn at least one new thing from every single guest, right?
Yeah, no, I have definitely learned a lot of different things, because I do have a wide variety, and a lot of them, some of them are authors that have life struggle. You know, in order to write a book, you got to have a reason why you want to write a book, right? And a lot of
Right.
times it's life experience or a event or something like that. You know, I mean, I have had some of the ones that do talk about their write a book about their profession, maybe. I think Dr. Ben Hardy, one of the episodes I did was is personality permanent, and he wrote a book about that, called about personality and it being permanent or not, and that was an interesting one for me because I'd actually experienced that personality is not permanent. You can change your personality uh,
Right.
all the time, you know, and it's usually shaped by events or experiences in your life. Um, so yeah, I like all the episodes that I've done. There are a couple that I don't like, and it's not,
Oh,
it didn't have anything to do with the guest because the guest, it was just
okay.
me talking. And so I actually did a post this morning. It's funny that you mentioned that. There's what episode? Um, or no, I said, do you have an episode that you've done that you cringe when people say, "Hey, I've listened to that episode," and it's not because of anything other than it was a. I wish I would have not published that one because it was more of a vent episode than it was like I was venting about online dating
Oh,
because
okay.
I just had a bad experience, right? And I was fed up with it, and I went on a rant, and it really makes me seem like a, kind of like an asshole, you know. But I had put it out, and I'm not going to take it back because that's not real life, right?
Right.
We have times in our lives that when we speak about something or that we're speaking emotionally about it instead of intelligently. We're reacting instead of responding. And so I was reacting to a situation, and I decided that it would be funny to put it in a podcast. And as I listened back to it, I'm like, that probably wasn't the best idea.
Now, how was it how was it received by people out there? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, it's got like 160 something listens, and I don't know. It just I didn't like the way that it painted me and made me look. But at the same time, I'm transparent, and I'm going on authenticity, and it's like
This is
and
how
that
I
was
felt in the moment.
yeah, that was a year ago. So I've talked to a lot of people since then, had a lot of dating experiences since then, and my attitude has kind of changed a little bit, and that's part of the reason why I do this too, because like I have a co-host in the variety portion like once a month that I bring on, and she's completely different than me, right? And I'm
That's the
almost
that's the, that's the best type of like
yeah,
combination of people that are the two ends of the spectrum.
yeah, and she calls me on my chauvinism. She calls me on, like, really? Is that how you think? And sometimes, you need that. You need to be called out on your own stuff because in the world of criminality and addiction, we learn behaviors that don't match up with reality, right? So, in the real world where people are going through life in the right way, you have the underworld where people have learned behaviors to lie, to cheat, to steal, to do all of these things to be able to survive in this realm, right? Well, when you get out of that realm, you still have the behaviors
Right.
that don't translate into the real world now, right? And so now you have to go and fix all of those and learn that okay, well you don't have to lie about everything, or there's no need. You're like there would be things I would lie about, stupid things, right? That stuff that was like, why did you even lie about that? But it was the reactions, you know what I mean? They're learned behaviors that you know what I mean, that don't apply now at all in the world that you're living in.
It's the Tea with Mike show.